Hello, dear listener, and welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws with East Forest podcast. This is a podcast where we have conversations with people who live lives outside the box, and we're primarily exploring these new stories that people live and how we craft a new story in this world so we can learn how to live wisely and well, and hopefully maybe you find a little inspiration in that somewhere too. If you like this podcast, please review it on iTunes. You can also support us by just, hanging out with East Forest online, telling your friends about the project, helping us grow. If you really want to send us some money via PayPal to support this work, you can do that at info@eastforest.org. That's also the email if you want to send us any questions, comments. And at that same website, eastforest.org, you can see live dates. We got some stuff coming up. I'll be in Fort Worth, Texas on June 9th. I'll be in Ontario, June 22nd through 24th. Portland, Oregon, August 3rd through 12th with the AWOL Dance Company. Detroit at a little festival, or a great festival, August 17th through 19th. I believe it's called Barefoot and Free. And September 27th through 30th, we'll be here in Bouldertown, Utah, doing the East Forest Retreat, which my guest today, Marisa Weppner, she also has helped teach at this retreat, sort of co-lead it, but she teaches yoga. And Marisa is a master yoga. That's how badass she is at yoga. She's a master yoga. With degrees in Transpersonal Psychology, she's a studio owner of Sage Yoga and Wellness in Boise, Idaho. You can see her teaching. I believe some of the classes are online for free online at Udaya. That's an online source for online yoga classes. She has a new book through them as well. If you want to learn how to do yoga at home on your own through a wonderful book. And she's also recently hooked up with 1440 Multiversity and helping them do their programming out there, which has been pretty exciting. And full disclosure, Marisa is also my girlfriend. So there you go. But we kept this super professional. And I think she wanted to talk more about yoga and stuff, but I really wanted to get behind the scenes with the Treefort Music Festival. She's also part of that crew on the artist committee, and she's been one of those founding members. And to me, it's always fascinating to get under the hood of these things. It's one of my favorite festivals. I've played it the last 3 years, and it's just grown and grown and grown, and it has such wonderful curating that I think it's helpful especially for musicians to kind of hear from people who work in this industry and how things get put together. But she definitely is someone who is living a life outside the box, and she's one of the calmest people I know. And is really doing things her way and seems to have always been doing that. And that's something that I've always been trying to figure out what makes that tick in the background. So I do get into that a bit. And I'm trying to parse that out and try to figure out for myself and for all of us, what are these things in people that keep them so calm and so positive and so passionate about their lives. So I'm coming to you today from Boulder, Utah, and it is snowing today, which was a bit of a surprise. It's late in the season for that to happen, but I gotta say, I know this isn't gonna last, but it is so beautiful. It's really been something. I moved out here full time in August, and it's just amazing to be inside the Grand Staircase National Monument. Is where I'm blessed enough to live, and I'm surrounded by 14 acres. I've got slick rock, pinyon trees, sage trees, a lot of wildlife out here, views down to the canyon, into the Escalante. And look, it ain't convenient to be here. I'm 4 hours from the nearest airport and really major stores. But what I gain from here is a sense of wonder and a sense of humbleness by being so ensconced and seeped in the natural world. Because it's probably something I've talked about a lot in just my life, about the need for wilderness and the need for what I like to say, that which is still wild in the world. Because there's something about that reminds us about that which is still wild in ourselves. And that's an important thing because, there really is no separation between you and this wilderness, between me and this nature. Because we are it, right? We are the earth personified, walking around, manifest with mouths and eyes and ears. And you are it incarnate. You are nature incarnate. So smoke on that. Think on that for a bit. But I just wanted to recognize the environment I'm in right now. So I'm watching these little snowflakes come down, and I'm sure it'll turn into rain, which is something I was pretty darn sick of growing up in Oregon. But now that I'm here, and the few times it does rain, boy, is it beautiful. And it smells good. It's got that beautiful high desert rain smell. So let's get into this. Enough pontificating. This is Marisa Weppner. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Enjoy. Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Pleasure to be here.
We're in Boise, Idaho, are we not?
We are.
Yeah. So things are gearing up for Treefort Music Fest, Yoga Fort.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been interested in like sort of the behind the scenes, the back end of these things. Kind of like, people come to the festivals and they don't always know how it all comes together.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. How many acts perform at Treefort?
Approximately 450.
Is that more than years before? It's always been that?
No, the first year was probably around 200, 250. And then the next year it jumped quite a bit. And then we've always maintained around 400.
And you don't have to pay to apply to play?
Oh, no, of course not.
Some festivals you do. It's kind of a bit of a racket.
No, you definitely...
South by Southwest, for instance, I think it's like... It used to be $50, $60. I bet it's more now.
Well, that's a great way to earn an extra buck, I guess.
It is, and that's part of their plan to make the festival sustainable for them. A big way, because if you think about South by, I would guess thousands of acts are applying because they accept, 1,000, 2,000 for official showcases?
Something like that.
That would definitely change the business model, for instance, of Treefort, in the sense that you're not relying on that income, because it obviously costs a lot of money to put on a festival. So where's the money come from to make it happen?
My understanding is it comes from ticket sales, it comes from sponsors, and then there's, I don't want to use the word private endowment, but there's a personal investor also.
One of the founders. And you're on the artist committee.
Yes.
How many people are on the artist committee?
10.
10? Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? Like, I saw, you told me a little bit about the back end of like, there's this sort of web portal where you all get to rate and review different acts that apply.
And that's newer. That came in more like year 3, I believe. And we've only started to use it more and more. And
this is year 7?
This is year 7. So when we first started out, it was literally, and at that time, maybe there was just about 7 of us or so, 7 or 8. And we would sit in a room together, in a living room together, and drink and throw out bands and throw out artists.
Very tedious. I mean, that could take a long.
Well, the
as
meetings,
far as your time management.
Yeah, the meetings are typically like 4 or 5 hours.
So at the end of it, you're drinking, and like the bands that are coming on, it's just like what's the best that goes with wine or something. So the first few festivals are just like drinking bands.
No, not like that at all. The first couple years too on the artist committee, who you like as a musician and your musical taste is something very personal. So when
that's why you have 10 of you.
Yeah, right? And so when you would throw out something, say it's your favorite band, and you finally are like, hey, what about this band? And the whole committee's like, oh, God, no. Your feelings could get hurt for sure. And I think in the first few years, there were hurt feelings around certain things. But now we've all known each other for so long and are such great friends. We've got really thick skin when it comes to that. And so we trust each other, too, in our musical styles. Like, each person sort of kind of covers a specific genre.
Right.
As well.
Well, let's take a step back, though. You're saying that some of the bands you're talking about, you're doing the outreach to them to come play.
Yes, both.
I was speaking more of like all the blind submissions.
So both things happen. So as a committee, we get together and we're like, who are our wants? Who do we want to reach out to? What agents are we going to contact? Who do we want our headliners to be? So as a committee, we think about like the larger scale artists, and then also there are the bands that are submitting to be at the festival.
Sure.
And so then there's both processes are going on. And then the artist committee helps with like venue selection, lineup for the venues. The first few years too, we had the system of getting poster boards, and we'd write like the day and the venue name, and each band, hundreds of bands, would get written on a sticky note, a color-coded sticky note, and we would just like sit around and like move around the sticky notes based on the day and the venue and the band.
You mean for the programming?
For the programming.
Right.
Yeah. The programming piece. And then, yes, bands submit to become a part of the festival, and then we listen to those that have submitted and rate those.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So what sticks out when you're listening? Let's just say you're some band, and you want to play at Treefort. Is there something you feel that is a big no-no? There are things that you see are consistently help people stick out from the fray?
On our selection process, when you submit, there's a question, why do you want to play at Treefort Music Festival?
I have seen that.
Yeah.
And so my third year
we all
playing.
read that. And if you answer well to that, you're likely to get considered more. If you have a really shitty answer to that, or it seems like your manager just wrote something, or it's like a copy and paste like form response, we see that. And that actually matters.
So what is well? Obviously, you're saying something that seems authentic.
Yes, and it seems authentic, and how stoked they are to be there.
So a level of excitement about being part of this.
Enthusiasm, and making it, too, not sound like it's just about, like, I've got a new record coming out, so I want to promote it. Things that are funny also help, because that helps...
Not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah, like entertain us, maybe. We share those. We talk about those as the community too. Well, like, did you see this artist response?
Can you please share us a few of the good ones?
There was that one guy. Should I say the name of the band?
No.
Okay.
We need to keep our karma clean. But you can absolutely tell us every detail.
I think I shared this one with you already, who was like a super kooky, like, is this even a real submission or not? And then it was, why do you want to play at Treefort Music Fest? And his response was something like whiskey sours. Like, that was just his answer.
Is that the guy you showed me?
Yeah.
That it was real.
Yeah.
And he said something like, I have something like 1,000 songs to play. Was it something like that?
But they're all impromptu.
But you can check them out on such and such site. And true enough, he had like 1,000 songs or something, but they were all sort of like strumming a guitar and making up lyrics over it.
So we get a kick out of that. That guy did not get an invite to come play at the festival.
Well, but question though.
Yes.
Multiple people will, now you have an electronic system where people can log in and you sort of like give a 1 to 5, so to speak.
It's like no is 1, so maybe is 2, starting above my head is 3, yes is 4, and yes, oh God, yes is 5.
So there's an aggregate score. Let's say 3 people. One gives a 5, one gives a 4, one gives a 3. That artist now has a number 4 attached to their submission. How do you decide then, like, which ones get selected?
Well, could be based on like lineup, like where we actually put this band. How does it make sense in the overall vision? Like, yeah, they might be great, but we don't have anywhere that it makes sense to put them to play, and so that sometimes factors in for sure.
But how much is that numeric score? Is there a cutoff, so to speak? Like if you're under
like
3,
I was just talking.
Are there any ones that end up playing?
No, I would say no. I was just talking with Eric last week, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm working on my short list." And there's 600 bands on it.
On his short list.
On his short list.
And that means, like, I basically got the ones I'm trying to decide, like, which ones can I fit
And they
in.
all have, like, 3s or 4s, right? Like, they all have, and he has to maybe pick 200 of those.
So this is
100.
Eric Gilbert?
Yeah, Eric Gilbert, the festival director.
Right. He's the man. So essentially the buck stops with him. Did you tell me that he technically listens to every single submission by the time it's all said and done. And technically, he ultimately has the ultimate. So really, the number system, all this stuff is like...
No. I would say that he is very clear to make it known that it's a committee selection process and that it's not just him.
Sorry for all the mic banging around. This is me doing... I got it. It's just janky. All right. It's good. It's good. I find this fascinating.
There's people that rate the online submission of bands that aren't on the artist committee. So there's the 10 of us that do the big visioning.
Sort of like the headliners.
Yes.
Right.
And the venues and the lineups and the big asks or who we want or the overall, like, what maybe genre do we want to focus on or any of that kind of stuff. And then there's a lot more that go through the submissions because there's so many artists that submit. We can't listen to all of them. Eric does, but I didn't.
And it's just literally part of his full-time job of doing Treefort year-round.
Yes. Yeah.
Going back to this number system, how often do you find that bands are applying from year to year to year? Let's say they don't get selected one year. And how much do you find that they might get selected another year or their little score might be going up just based on... Is it based on strictly the recording they submit to you, or do you look at the bigger picture of what this band is?
There's so many factors that go into that. Like this year, a good example would be this local band called the Shook Twins.
I know the Shook. They're from Oregon.
Well, they've applied to be at Treefort almost every year, or asked, and we haven't had them. And then this year, they are. And so some things it's like, we haven't had this band yet. It seems like we should finally put them in the lineup.
Great band. Yeah.
So let's put them in. Other bands, it's like, we've had them the past couple years. Let's skip a year. We'll give it to another band.
I like all the other forts. And I also play in Yoga Fort, or I have the last 3 years too, this year too. Which, that is your gig as well.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to... I was getting to that. I'm just so fascinated by the back end. Like, as a band, as an artist, I think there's this veil of obscurity of how these things work with booking agents, with festivals.
Well, every band is listened to. Every band is rated. Every band might not be listened to by everybody. We kind of try to break it down by genre. Like, I know I love EDM, and I love punk, and I love, I don't know.
You like a little bit of everything.
I kind of like a little bit of everything. We've upgraded our system, too. We currently don't have poster boards and sticky notes. We haven't done that for a couple of years.
It's more digital?
Yeah, now it's Excel spreadsheets.
What happens for the visual people?
It's still color-coded.
Well, it sounds like an incredible organizational feat just to take all these submissions and create some kind of programming. And I think one lesson that I'm hearing in this for artists from the outside is recognizing that being selected or not being selected has something to do, too, with how this whole puzzle piece fits together.
Yeah.
And then amongst this, how many different forts are there this year?
Let's see. Yoga Fort, Ale Fort, Food Fort,
Film Fort,
Hack Fort,
Comedy Fort,
Skate Fort, Kid Fort.
What's Skate Fort?
Skateboarding over at Rhodes Park. So that's 8 right there.
Is there the spiritual one?
No. That's under Yoga Fort.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about Yoga Fort. That's your gig.
So Yoga Fort, I joined the artist committee in year 2. And had at the same time, I've been teaching yoga for 15 years or so and going to yoga festivals. It was clear to me as a yogi who went to yoga festivals that people liked to do yoga when they were at events, when they were at festivals. And so I kind of just started to bug the artist committee about having a yoga class. It was more like, if we just did a class, I think people would really like it. Just give them a break, somewhere through the weekend. And sort of just planted that seed with them for 6 months or so. And then I remember running into Eric at the record exchange a couple weeks before Treefort. And I was like, hey, what about that yoga class? And he looks at me, he's like, you really want to do it? I'm like, yeah, I think it'd be cool. Let me do it. And he's like, all right, well, then do it. So 2 weeks prior, he says that I can. And he's like, just do it Saturday and Sunday at the Shrine, which is one of our main venues, in the morning. He's like...
Is that the El Cora?
Yeah, El Cora Shrine.
Yeah.
At He's like, you can do it at like 8 a.m. Maybe it was 9 a.m. Like, done. Like, no negotiation. I'm just going to be a yes and make this happen. So he gave me 2 days, and I said to my friend Celeste, who's a dance teacher in town, I'm like, hey, we got these 2 class slots. Like, I'll teach yoga one day. Why don't you do dance one day? We'll just show up and see who comes. So I programmed my iPod with like all Treefort bands to make my playlist and plugged that in and taught class on like super gross, grody morning after
beer encrusted floors.
Yeah, on
God
Sunday
knows
morning.
What else is on that floor?
And there was like 25 people that showed up.
Did they clean it?
Maybe, but it doesn't seem that clean. But anyways, we counted that as a success.
People come in and they get like staph infections or like
everybody was healthy. Everyone was good. I was in bad shape because I had stayed up literally all night the night before.
Classy.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I'm like, not going to bail on this one. Showing up and make this happen. And then the next year we're like, hey guys, we had like 25 people. Like, I bet if we planned it not 2 weeks prior, we could make it into something. And they were great enough to just say, sure, do what you want to do. We'll help you figure it out. You just need to pay for it. Whatever you want to do, figure it how you're going to pay for it, and we'll support you on the back end. We'll give you a venue. We'll help you with marketing. We'll put you on the website. And so we sort of just started to renegade, build it that way. So Yoga Fort was kind of the first official micro fort to grow out of Treefort, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Now there's a bunch. But Treefort itself has grown also as far as attendance and numbers and so forth in the meantime.
But one of the beautiful things about Treefort is the access that the community feels to it. Like, it feels like the community's festival. So there's a lot of buy-in from all kinds of people, and them like me approaching Treefort and saying, hey, I make films, or I'm involved in technology, or I'm involved in food, or I want to do some stuff for the kids. Treefort said, great, let's do that. Let's build that in too.
Sounds great.
So Yoga Fort's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the mission with that was to have classes, dance, movement, yoga classes, all paired to live music. So every class has live music from someone like you, East Forest, easy, good choice, to like kirtan, more classical yogic music, to DJs.
All kinds of music.
All kinds. Or like Treefort artists that then they're signed up to come to Treefort, and we reach out to them and say, hey, would you like to play for a Yoga Fort class?
Yes. So what inside you causes you to want to do things like this? This takes a lot of time, and you have other things going on in your life for sure. Like, what turns you on about organizing a festival? And then, well, you're sort of involved with two festivals in a sense inside a festival.
Well, I think what happens is when you start something like this, for me, I get an idea like, oh, that'd be cool, that'd be fun. And you don't know yet at that time how much work it's going to take, right? And so in hindsight, you're like, holy cow, this was so much work. Would I have signed up for this if I had known? No. But you do it, and you build it along the way, and you just keeps going because you're passionate about it and you love it. And I'm passionate about music. Like you mentioned, I think briefly, I have a radio show, right? I'm involved with Radio Boise with a weekly show. With them, every Thursday, 9 to noon, Toast and Jam, for 6.5 years. So...
Well, here's my question is, things come into your life that you have passions about, and how do you decide where that line is about time management and your life energy, your life force? Where is that line between pure busyness and dilution of what you're interested in?
That's a great question, because you can certainly have like so many things going on, so many plates in the air that some fall, right? So how do you keep them all going? And if you're involved in something, are you giving your fullest to it, or are you just giving a little bit because you can only give a little bit to it? And for me, I feel like it comes in waves, where it's like right now is Yoga Fort, Treefort season. So I'm not traveling as much like I do with yoga and teaching at festivals. So that comes in the summer. And in the summer, I'm done with Treefort and Yoga Fort. And this will sit on the back burner until the fall. And so in the fall, I'll pick it up. and start doing more with the festival. The thread that runs through that is I'm a mom of 2 great kids, and I'm running a yoga studio, which I'm doing all the time, and I've got the radio show that I'm doing all the time, and I don't know. I stay up late, but I love everything that I do. And so I guess I'm not watching television and just like sitting around. Like I don't have downtime like that.
Mm-hmm. What do you do? I mean, do you find that you have any things that do keep you grounded in your own personal, private life? Or what practices do you find that help you to navigate, I suppose, all the myriad things that you're doing in your life?
I love to travel, and so I'll travel for work, but I also take trips to travel just for me or just with family where I'm not working, or I try not to work too much. So there's that, like knowing that I'll have these blocks of time that the work isn't happening, and I schedule those in and do that. And then on a daily practice, I mean, I meditate and I do yoga and I read things that inspire me and I connect with people that inspire me, and I guess I eat well. I think that helps. I spend time with my kids.
I feel like there's less reading happening in the age of the iPhone.
I read a ton. I have like 6 books next to my bed right now.
Do you finish books, or do you tend to?
Yeah, no, I finish books. I'm committed. It has to be a really bad book for me, like, oh no, goodness gracious. Not going to waste my time on this. I read a lot. I think I know less about the Netflix series than most people. I watch a couple, but hardly any.
Yeah, I'm always interested in, I don't know, sort of like how people cope and manage, especially when those people are busy. But that is if they are coping and managing. I feel like you do. It's interesting to me, like what people, just the practices they bring into their lives, even mentally, like internally. I suppose yoga, meditation, these things help you with a certain discipline in the mind. Because that's a lot to manage. I'm sure you've met people who do a lot, but they're also sort of frenetic. And maybe they enjoy that freneticism about the life that they've built for themselves. But, more than anything, the life that you're doing, I'm sure you recognize that you're choosing all these things, right? Like no one's forcing you to do any of these things. And like how much of Yoga Fort, Treefort, your studio, the radio show, the stuff you're doing with 1440, how much of it, or what importance does it have for it to feel like there's an active service to it? Or is it more just about following your excitement?
Most of it is an active service, and it's following my excitement, but I think that those two things are tied together. Like my Dharma, part of it, my life path, is serving people. And I know that I'm supposed to do something, or I feel like I'm supposed to, when it excites me, when it feels like a yes, and I get super jazzed up. And then the people around me are also like, yeah, cool. How can I help you? Yes, definitely. What do you need? Then I know that that's the path to go down, and things just start to fall into place. When I'm like not excited, or things don't like schedule-wise meet up, or they just never seem to happen, or the energy's not there, then that's a no. Then I don't do it. And so, yeah, I guess it's like a more of an intuitive inner knowing of paying attention to what are the signs in my life around me that are saying this is a yes, and how does that feel in my body. Some of the things that I get involved with, I see as like a deep intuitive hit. Like when you and I did our retreat together last April, I had a sense almost a year prior that we were going to work together that following spring, but I didn't know what it was or how it was going to look or even what it meant. And then when you said to me, hey, I'm going to do this retreat at the Boulder Mountain Guest Ranch, my response to you was like, great, I'm going to do that with you.
Yeah, those retreats are great.
And then we did it. I didn't ask you. I kind of just told you. Luckily, you were nice enough to say, sure.
So this stuff you're doing with 1440 University is essentially...
Multiversity.
So, yes, a multiversity. You're designing a retreat. I know it's like not even off the ground yet, but you're designing a retreat programming, essentially, like a weekend.
Yeah. The name we've kind of gone back and forth on, not decided yet, but it's something like the 1440 Signature Experience, where it's like an R&R-ish type weekend where it's Friday to Sunday, and it's for guests that don't necessarily want to come and take a weekend with whatever big name teacher and they're specifically offering. They want to come to 1440 and experience 1440. And so they come, and there's a couple different tracks. Do they want to take a yoga class or meditation class, go on a hike? But it's all contained within a theme for the weekend. Let's say the theme is relationships, right? And so they come in, and all the meals are shared together in their big kitchen table. And there's like a group cohesion that's with people through the signature experience, and downtime and separate time too, but group process time. And like the hope for people is that they come to 1440 and they get the things that they need, like rest and rejuvenation, relaxation, unplugging. And then in some way they're inspired or challenged to work through their own stuff and their own hangups and their own issues and their own process.
It's a wellness weekend, essentially, but
one that's contained and held together in a group, but less intense than, let's say, a week-long retreat with whatever teacher, and you're doing super deep work. It's deep, but it's also short and concise.
Right. It's in Santa Cruz area.
Yeah, Scotts Valley.
So I'm assuming it'll have some body elements like yoga, but it's going to be a lot of other stuff too, sort of whatever works.
Music. Also, and like
wilderness, there's some hiking.
Yep, hiking, meditation. There's a spa. There's an infinity pool, hot spring. There's going to be like a cooking class too, like a private cooking class, or at least in there with their chef, like a LED experience like that. There'll be art that's involved. There will be stargazing and moonlight walks and all kinds of things. Every weekend will vary a little bit depending on what the offering is.
Right.
But creating a program for them that they can eventually offer every weekend, that they become known for. Like I know that I can drive down from Silicon Valley to 1440 and have a great weekend. That's deep and meaningful and insightful and relaxing.
Do you think it will be geared towards people who might want to come in from the heartland of the country? Is it more geared towards tech folks and California focus?
I think it's both. It's wanting to tap into a broader market than maybe just the same sort of workshop-y circuit. Yeah.
Is technology playing a role at all?
Yes.
Or is it more experience and process-based?
Well, technology, I hope, will play a role. Like, I'm using that Muse headset for meditating that I've been really getting a kick out of recently.
Biofeedback type stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's totally useful these days. There's no reason, it's like use the tools that we have. A lot of times with biofeedback, sort of the learning process is just faster. Yeah.
One of the differences, too, is that it's not so austere, where it's like, now you're vegan for the weekend, there's no alcohol, and nobody has a good time in that way. It's like you can have beer, and you can have wine, you can hang out in the hot tub, and you can use your phone if you like, and you can still...
Restorative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Kripalu once doing a thing, and I remember they could not have any phones.
Yes, it's
although
not
even
like
at our retreat that we did, I asked people not to have their phones out.
It's a great ask. It's a great ask.
They don't really work there anyway. But,
not in Boulder.
Yeah,
but it's not. There's not like shaming around it. It's just
of
like
course. Yeah.
It's not, and then we're not throwing technology out either.
Right, of course. I think it's helpful to have a break from that, obviously, and a fast. But it's also helpful to sort of learn about integration. I mean, let's be honest. In 3 days, it's if you're trying to learn perhaps new techniques, for instance, meditation styles. Why not use some technological devices that might give you some biofeedback on your brain states and maybe learn a little faster?
Yeah.
Well, maybe if the mushroom legalization passes in California, you guys can start bringing in some other technologies, some plant technology.
That's certainly a hope that I hold.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have
And
to
I could
open a
see
center.
that as a venue for that.
Sure, why not? Yeah. But they've been around. I mean, it's a new facility, but it's been a couple
It'll
years.
be a year in May.
Just a year. I know that people like Ram Dass and Sharon Salzberg, I think, just that kind of whole Love, Serve, Remember group has done some work out there.
Yeah.
Krishna Das, I think. So they've definitely been attracting some interesting folks. Yeah, with our retreat the last 2 times, I've always thought that the biggest element of it is the space, where it is, the land. And more than anything, the location is the real medicine, and it's about giving people an excuse and a container to be in that space. So like going on the hikes or having certain this or that music or body work or conversations, it's all about allowing them to get deeper into themselves in a particular location.
Well, Boulder, Utah has that because it's so remote, and the like purity of the vibration is still pretty intact because the population is so low.
Yeah, I call it a raw land diet.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been sullied as much by culture.
Yeah, so the land there for sure does that work. I feel it's almost like a magical portal vortex of intention and hearts that's there. Like what you're working on, in my experience. In Boulder, what's up for you? What's your thing? When you leave, resolution occurs.
Something occurs. It's a lot of energy moving through there, and people, I think, underestimate it, especially coming in from the city or whatnot. I mean, you always see it every time. I've seen it time and time again with anyone comes in, friends, what have even myself. Like it takes a day or so to sort of, you see it peel away the layers of the onion day by day by day, and that core thing, that core essence of who you are, speaks louder and louder because there's less noise there.
A lot less noise.
And in that space, you hear.
Yeah, prayers are answered.
I also have a lot of humbleness with those retreats and living down there and being down there, because I also recognize that sort of, I don't want to say be careful what you ask for, but be conscious of what you ask for. It's an amplifying place. And I wouldn't have really believed it unless I had felt it myself when I went out there for a retreat in 2008, and it was powerful, and it kept drawing me back and drawing me back and drawing me back until today. So
yeah,
definitely that was the inspiration for the retreat too. Yeah, well, speaking of practices that keep people grounded, I mean that's one right there, is sort of finding those places of space, finding those places where you can hear. When things are busy, when you have so much going on. For
being
people
in
who do a
nature,
lot.
just even looking up at the sky can reset you.
Oh God, it's amazing. It's amazing. Horizon to horizon stars. Yeah, that's, cultures forever, until electricity was invented 100 plus years ago, probably saw that every night as clear as day, like all of us before the Industrial Revolution. And now, in a lot of ways, not being able to see the stars, it's almost like a sign of when a city's too big, maybe. There's too much light pollution.
Yeah.
Because it is humbling. The town across, Torrey, across the mountain, they did a thing where, dark skies.
Dark skies preserve.
So
we have those in Idaho.
Yeah.
We have large pockets of dark sky preserves in Idaho.
Yeah, and I think Boulder's going to do too, but Boulder's so small that it's already that way, but I think it's a worthy thing to do. That area is one of the darkest places in the United States. And then you add on top of that the elevation of 6,000 to 7,000 feet in the town, and so the clarity at night is stunning.
It is stunning.
And obviously the weather is usually quite clear skies, so... Do you see a lot of stars in Boise?
Some, but when you travel like Sun Valley, Stanley, that direction, more north of here, there's more.
Yeah. So Boise's on the brink of getting too big.
I mean, I still see a lot of stars. It's not as much as Boulder or these other places.
You like Boise, you say, because it feels like a city that's at sort of a growth point that's positive, because people are still excited and you can do things here.
Yes.
And it's not jaded yet.
Yes.
And it's not too
I
crowded or
describe
expensive.
it as like a town that's becoming still. It hasn't became its thing.
Feels
it hasn't
like Portland,
solidified. Yeah, that's what people would say.
Bit back.
Portland, Seattle, Denver, San Francisco, wherever, whatever big city, they are their thing now. They have their identity. Boise is in the process of shaping it. It's like a flower that's blossoming. And so being here right now is really exciting because, yeah, you can help shape that.
Well, cool. So I think one of the last questions I have is if you had to, if I were to ask you, like, you know, the way that you walk your walk, are there any things that you do or advice you'd think if you're looking back at your younger self on things not to do that sort of help you do that walk, help you kind of the stars that keep your ship of life sailing straight? What would they be for you? What might they be? Now, it doesn't have to be like a daily practice. It may be, absolutely. But it could also be an ethos or a thought or just, you know, something you even like to eat that helps you just kind of make it in a way that feels right and good.
Get plenty of sleep. Rest whenever. What does Court say?
The 10 laws?
Yeah, he's
always
got
rest whenever you can.
Always rest whenever you can.
Yeah, these are like
it's
your
definitely
laws.
one of my high ones.
Yeah.
Always rest whenever you can.
That's a good one.
So it's like sleeping as much as possible till I don't feel tired, and resting throughout the day too. And not, I mean, I have a busy life and I'm go, 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 but I do spend a lot of time by myself. And
intentionally?
I think so. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the answer to intention is like, I think so. It's
I
like,
think
it
so.
might be intentional.
Well, then you made me question it. Like, do people not just want to hang out with me? And I think it's my choice. I don't know. But like, yeah, like not watching television. I don't pay attention to the news hardly at all. People think that I'm really calm and stress free, and I think that's one reason why. Like, I'm not in that, like the culture right now of people getting so angry about things. What's the word I'm looking for?
Just ramped up. But
Outrage.
It's information.
The outrage. Yeah, but there's so much that's out there, especially online in the news, that's just like, how can we get you outraged about something? And it just ping pongs back and forth constantly. So I steer clear of that.
Yes, I completely agree on the news being probably an unnecessary trigger. I actually have a current, that's something I'm a little tapped into, and I go in these waves of it, but I'm very aware of, you open up the news, and it's basically like, here's the bad news from around the world today. But you're concerned, I'm sure, with what's going on in the world. So
Absolutely, but it's like,
how much of it
how
is a
can I
choice,
make an impact, right?
versus you just don't want to tap into that? How much is like, I consciously choosing to keep that out?
A lot. Very high.
Okay. Well, you're active on social media?
A little bit, yeah.
And I think I told you that's something that more recently I've been easing off on that, and to the point recently I haven't really been on it at all. And I've noticed a difference in my own psyche of how that makes me feel. It's sort of hamster wheel of promotion and PR. But I know that for some things like Facebook, for instance, for a lot of people, that's how they get their news.
Right. I don't get my news from Facebook.
But you see stuff.
Not really.
How
Not
can you,
really.
if you're on it, you see it.
Yeah, but I go on and I like promote the event that I need to promote.
So
or
you're not
tell
in the
somebody
news feed
happy
too
birthday.
much?
Yeah, I'm not in the news feed.
That's the real trap.
I'm not in the news feed. I'm checking my messages, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't look at or read that stuff.
The infinite feed of
No, usually it's like
alternate
some kind
reality
of
tunnel.
random quiz of like, I don't know.
Well, that's interesting because Facebook feed is a sort of algorithm showing you what they think you want to see.
Well, they think I want to see
You
quizzes.
obviously they also think you don't give a shit about the news.
No.
So
Well, they're right. I'm not clicking on it. Well, the only time I hear the news is when I go to my radio show on Thursdays. Democracy Now! Is ending.
That's
and
it.
So I'll
You
get
hear
like
the tail end of Democracy Now!
once a week.
Yeah, I don't know. So what else? I mean, besides getting sleep and being careful of what you bring into your consciousness. Now, don't
Yes,
get me wrong,
very
those
careful.
are huge.
Very
Those are
careful
huge.
what I bring into my consciousness. Like I said too, I don't really watch shows. Like I'm not watching all the Netflix stuff because most of the time too that can amp up your psyche, especially if you watch it before bed. That Black Mirror show that I watched a couple times.
So you read.
Oh, I read
more.
a lot. I read a lot.
So your private time tends to be yoga, reading.
Kids.
Well, private time, though, when you're
Okay,
not
you're
being a
right,
mother.
Yeah, but I guess there's a part of me
I
that
guess
feels
there's
like
work.
being a mother is private time too.
Sure.
Like with them. It's so sweet and it's so grounding. And just like playing Uno or cooking food or snuggling or, I don't know, going for a walk.
So if you could give advice to yourself when you're 20 years old, what would it be?
You're going to make it. Don't worry. It's going to be great. You got this. Just keep following your heart. I was somehow wise enough in my early 20s to decide to do what made me feel most alive. And at the time then was teaching yoga. And so I have been teaching yoga now for 16 years. And that's my life path. That's my dharma. That
feels like the core of your work. That's the core
of it. But it's related to psychology. That's what my degrees are in from school. And that means like exploring human consciousness. What does it mean to be human? What are the heights of human potential? How can we experience the bounds of our potential and consciousness? And how do we get clear? Like, how do we have a good life?
How do you?
Being generous, being thoughtful, being kind, being loving, being forgiving.
Are you trying to say that sort of these things you're saying that you avoid help you with the critic in your mind, help not amplify the voice in the head that...
I actually have almost zero of an inner critic.
Do you think that has something to do with these things I just mentioned?
Yeah. I mean, somehow early on in my life, I got tapped into connecting to my heart and truth and really trusting my intuition, even when things didn't go well or somebody else might give themselves a hard time about something. I didn't have that. There was just this sense of trust of like, okay, well, it's still going to work out.
How do you think that was engendered in you? Was it something to do with your genetics, how you grew up?
No, definitely not. Definitely not how I grew up. I had a really hard
So why'd you end up so well?
Oh, that's a whole nother story, I guess. That's a bigger story, I guess. But part of it in my upbringing, right? Some people have upbringings where their parents and them are really close, and there's maybe more of like a shape from their parents to their family of like, this is how you're supposed to be, or this is how you should be, or this is what we expect from you. I didn't have any of that. And so I had to make it up all on my own. And within that, it then became, well, I could be whatever I want to be, or I could do whatever I want to do, because there's no expectations on me from anybody else. And I have to just rely on myself to figure that out.
Right, but not everyone would be so, have so much willpower, such as you've had. They might revert in their mind where they do have that inner voice that's quite critical. Yeah. I think a lot of people have that experience. I know I do.
Most people do. Most people certainly do.
Well, we want to know what you figured out.
I don't know. I started on my spiritual path when I was 15. Studying meditation in forms of like, at the time it was like new agey type books, Pleiadians and those sorts of things.
Right.
And then hearing about yoga, but not really knowing what yoga was, but reading about it as I was studying Eastern philosophies and practices, and then eventually finding yoga when I was like 19, and then studying psychology at the same time, because like I said, I was interested in consciousness. Part of that was psychedelics and experiences I had with those that infused that inquiry too. And then just sort of paying attention to the law of cause and effect in my own life. When I act like an asshole, people treat me like an asshole and things go badly. When I'm a kind person and generous and loving and thoughtful, the world responds to me in the same way.
You get what you give.
Yeah. And figuring
the golden rule right there.
Yes.
Right? Jesus spoke all about it. It's like, there it is.
Yeah. And I know when I act out of alignment with that, it usually comes back to bite me somehow. And so choosing not to do that. And also trusting myself, trusting my own inner knowing.
Mm-hmm. Where do you feel the inner knowing in your body?
All over my body. It depends. Whole body sometimes, heart sometimes, gut sometimes.
How do you know it's your inner knowing?
It feels like the feeling of yes. How do I know that it's coming from me?
Yeah. How does someone learn to trust their intuition?
Experience, I guess, like trusting it. Oh, that worked out. Not trusting it. Oh, well, that didn't work out at all. And then knowing like, oh, well, I knew better. I knew beforehand. You always know the answer, even though you pretend like you don't, right? People pretend like they don't really know, but really you do know, I think.
I agree with that. It's just more like, I think when I say how do you learn, it's reminding yourself through experience of trusting.
And then too, like I said, I had a really hard upbringing, and even when things were so hard, I saw and learned, despite that, I was always taken care of. All of my needs were always met. Does that make sense? And so, like, even when things could get really hard, or like so little money or income or source, you
saw the simplicity of your actual needs in a way.
Well, and that I never ended up like on the street homeless, right? Like everything, the path just
some people
always
do,
opens
right?
up.
But maybe for them that's a different dharma. But yeah,
there is a lot of trust in trusting too that it's. Sometimes it does look messy, right? Like it doesn't always look beautiful, but that's part of life.
Right.
And decay and death and release are part of it.
Right.
So just letting life happen, sort of.
Well, let's let it happen. Well, thanks for talking. Maybe we'll do it again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Another episode of 10 Laws with East Forest podcast. Thank you to Marisa Weppner for joining us. You can check out links for her, and I've got her in the show notes as well. This track you're hearing in the background and this bumper music is called Open Ocean, or that's what I've been calling it. And it's one of 4 tracks that's from a live performance that I did at a thing called Summit at Sea. And that was a couple years ago. It's like a big cruise ship that a bunch of movers and shakers, tech people, fill up with 3,500 people, and partying and networking ensues. But I was there playing music. It's actually kind of a crazy scene. I'll get into that some other time. But that's called Open Ocean. It is technically unreleased, so I hope you enjoy it. If you like this podcast, remember, please give it a review. Share East Forest's podcast and all things to music with your friends. It helps us, and hopefully maybe it'll help them too. So keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit, and if you do it with grace.